So welcome to People's University, where we take back the idea of education as being a space of learning by the people and for the people. Since the UC has proven it is committed to silencing any mention of the genocide and ongoing occupation of Palestine, we are here to show them that they, in their ivory towers, are not the university, we are. Today, we are gathered in community, in love, and in life to hear from an incredible lineup of speakers speaking on topics ranging from the complicity of tech in genocide to labor and to the history of student activism on this very campus. But before we go any further, I would like to invite us all into a political grounding so we can go into the rest of the programming with a clear conscience and understanding of who we are here for and why. And for that, I would like to welcome the PYM to do our political grounding.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So my name is Laith. I'm with the Palestinian Youth Movement. And we're just going to have a little bit of a political grounding to set the stage as to what's been happening in Palestine recently and what's yet to come. So what is the state of Palestine today? Let's begin with the West Bank, the Dhuffa. More than 100 Palestinians were detained just yesterday, with Nablus bearing the brunt of the raids. It was also confirmed that the 21-year-old Rahman Sabatin, who was arrested by occupation forces in June, has been martyred in Zionist custody. The Zionist government has approved of about 800 new settlement houses as of today. And they've just recently announced an additional $843 million in allocation to West Bank settlements. It is for deepening the dispossession, for entrenching the regime of apartheid and occupation. The Zionist entity's National Security Minister, Ben-Gvir, and other party members, they wore a noose pin in the Knesset to signal their support for legislation that would allow the lynching of Palestinian prisoners. The noose was symbolizing hanging them. These are not isolated incidents. They are the architecture of a system that is designed to exhaust, to fragment, to erase an entire people. The genocide in Gaza, if we move to Gaza, the genocide in Gaza has never stopped and is only slowed. Ever since the so-called ceasefire, week after week, Israel has continued to massacre civilians. They've continued to launch strikes. And they've turned the word ceasefire into a political theater. Since the announcement of the ceasefire, about 383 Palestinians in Gaza have been martyred, and hundreds of bodies continue to be retrieved from under the rubble. Just yesterday, there were 2 Palestinians that were shot west of the Yellow Line. One of those Palestinians was a child, and they were martyred. In addition to the occupation forces massacring the people of Palestine and the people in Gaza, Gaza is now facing brutal winter storms and flooding. A 9-month-old baby, Rahaf Abu Jazar, died overnight, this past night, because of the cold. Only 1/3 of Gaza's children today are able to attend school because of the conditions. Their futures are suspended between genocide, malnutrition, and an uncertain future. There are about over 6,000 aid trucks that are trying to get through the border, but the Zionist entity has only been allowing a little over 200 every day. And meanwhile, at the same time, the Zionist entity has been expanding its strikes in other places, such as in Lebanon. And they have been widening their scope of regional violence. And when it comes to pushing for the allowance of humanitarian aid, or pushing for the people of Gaza to be allowed to return home. Israel has stated clearly that they will open the Rafah border, but one way. They allow people out of Gaza, but they do not allow people inside. This future of a region, of a Palestine that is occupied by settlers, with the erasure of the Palestinian indigenous people, is a future that we cannot allow, that we must not allow, that we will not allow. But things are not just moving in Palestine. Things are moving for the Zionist entity beyond Palestine. There are massive investments that are flowing into media production, into partnerships, lobbying infrastructure, to manufacture consent for the Zionist entity's derangement. AIPAC and other pro-Israel lobbies and pro-Israel groups have been sending delegations across the world, including recently to Taiwan, to boost the legitimacy amongst foreign nationals and amongst people across the globe. It is not a coincidence. It is not a coincidence that on US campuses, including at Berkeley, that escalation from the Zionists is happening. At Stanford, when we look at the Stanford 11, they are still threatened with charges, and they're threatened by a DA office where the head of that office has gone on a paid trip to the Zionist entity, and his daughter works for AIPAC. At UC Berkeley, we have recently witnessed a series of very heavily pro-Zionist events on this campus, including at Sproul. And now, we see the suspension of our brother Peyrin. It marks another step in the coordinated attempt to silence pro-Palestinian voices. None of this is accidental. When we see this sort of behavior, this escalation is the language of the Zionist movement losing its legitimacy. And we know this. Trump stated it himself. When they called for the ceasefire, he said that Israel can't fight the world. In other words, the ceasefire that was put in place was not put in place for the Palestinians. The United States agreed to the ceasefire because they wanted to save Israel. And so what does this mean? When Zionism is being isolated, but at the same time, we are seeing escalations across the world and particularly on our campuses. What does this mean for us on this campus? This is a campus at Berkeley. This is a campus that sparked the free speech movement because UC Berkeley decided to ban political advocacy at that time. It is a campus that held the Third World Liberation Front and held strikes in the 60s to get an ethnic studies program here at Berkeley. It is a campus that had daily demonstrations on Telegraph Avenue and right here at Sproul against the US invasion of Vietnam. It is a campus, it is the campus that the very, very first SJP, Students for Justice in Palestine, was founded here at Berkeley. And that founding, it sparked a change on student campuses across the United States that would forever shift the student dynamic when it came to confronting Zionism. What this all means is that we have a responsibility and an important role. A role where we must counter the propaganda and we must resist any attempts, any and all attempts to reshape the narrative in defense of Zionism. We must reject it. Zionism is doing this, and Zionists are doing this because this entire time, over this past 2 years, they have been in a defensive posture, and we must keep them on the defensive until they fall. The backlash that we are seeing on campuses, including the suspension of Peyrin, it is their attempt to regain control, to regain their legitimacy, and to prevent Zionism from collapsing. But it is inevitable. But in order for us to achieve this, we have to work together. When one of us, like our brother Peyrin, is targeted, we have to stand up for him, we have to support him, and we have to support every one of us that gets targeted from Zionism. But above all, we must also stay clear-minded. We must also stay clear-minded and clear-eyed that the genocide has not ended, that the structures of occupation and racial domination has not ended. They are firmly in place, and while they've been shaken, we must continue our work to make sure that they are shaken until collapse, because our struggle continues, and so must we. Free! Free Palestine!
Free! Free Palestine!